Today I'm going to be talking about analyzing our starships and the value of analyzing your starship. So, before I begin, I was going to have an example, like like a person's name and stuff like that, and you'll understand what I'm talking about once I get into it. But I just thought that it would just be easier just to go through the points, and then if you guys have any questions, to just leave them down in the comments. I don't think it's gonna be that hard to do on your own. I always think it's best for people to do their own research, and always make sure when we watch research videos or instructionals to actually do them with our own charts. Specifically, we're talking about astrology, which this is not just going to be about astrology, but it is going to incorporate astrology. So, first things first, what is a starship? Okay, well, in the understanding, I believe, understanding spirit travel, I didn't really talk about it much, but our starship is our body, so you have head, arm, leg. There's so much I can say about that, but definitely there's a lot of information about that. That's another topic for another YouTuber. But this is our starship. We are star beings. Okay, so what does it mean to analyze your starship? So I got a download the other day, basically about dark skinned women. And the download was about what dark skinned people, specifically women, represent in the spiritual sense, and why in society it is distorted or looked at in a very, I'm just going to say distorted, but there's definitely another word that I want to use there. And when I got that download, it kind of fleshed out into other things. And so this was one of them. And so I want to bring this to you guys, okay? What's really, first I want to say to really look at yourself subjectively. Sometimes, let's just talk about astrology real quick, right? With astrology, let's say, we have a earth sun, a water moon, and a fire rising. And we're just kind of why is this my chart? We have some aspects that we don't really like, because when we read them online, there's certain, there's perspectives on it that kind of leave us down. You know what I'm talking about if you've ever been there when you first looked at astrology and you were like, I'm doomed. My chart is, you know what I mean? But that is looking at your chart subjectively, right? You're attaching feelings and things like that. But it's really important when you analyze your starship, you want to look at it objectively, okay? Because the whole point of this is to break apart your starship and build it back up. It's just like when, I don't know if any of you guys have done this. I've never done this, but I've heard that other people have done this. When they were kids, maybe they broke apart their remote control or some form of technology, their laptop, just so they can know where all the parts are. And they'll put it together and they'll know, or even, the phone, and people will do it so that they know the ins and outs of what they're using. And so this is the same. This is similar. This is very, very similar to that. It's about breaking down your starship so you can build it back up, the ins and outs, and you can start to then use your starship in a very different way because you understand its parts. Like I said, back to the astrology bit, it's very important to look at this objectively because it's what we were given, and there are many people who say it's what we chose, it's what we needed, in this lifetime. So if you want to look at it in that way as well, that's great. I'm sure if you are already at this point where you're like, okay, you know, let's get to the analyzing and breaking it down. I'm sure that you know it is it's best to look at things objectively. So let's get to it. Why don't we? So the first thing that we want to do is look at our very basic self. Does that make sense? Which is the color of our skin and the texture of our hair. So I say color theory and texture theory. With all of these points that we're going to get into, we want to look at it. We want to look at nature to show us the reflection of what it is, because we are beings. Our human bodies, right? Our starships are reflections of nature. Okay, so you want to look at your skin color. How is it reflected in nature? Okay, you want to look at your hair texture. How is that reflected in nature? You know, because not everybody who has the same hair texture has the same skin color, and vice versa. So that's like the very basics. Okay. Then you want to look into your anatomy. Okay, so I'm a woman, so I have female anatomy, and you want to look at how that's reflected in nature. Okay, so for this one, for example, breasts are more associated with mountains. Okay, and then the yoni space is more associated with caves. If you can't really think about much, you know, I would say just like kind of think and meditate, because that could be my interpretation. I could be like mountains and caves, but that might not be yours. You get what I mean? For the male genitalia, I would say like mushrooms is a representation of that. So that's something there. Okay, after you are done with color theory, texture theory, and anatomy, you want to get into your personal starship. So this is where it gets real personal, because now, you know, of course, anybody can have the same skin color and the same hair texture and, you know, anatomy. But when it comes to you personally, that's where it starts getting interesting, starts getting personal. And for those that might say, well, what about a person who has the same birthday as me and they have the same name and all of these things? Like, I really wish that we would come from a space of feeling like we are special. And it's not feeling like you're special and it makes someone else not special, but that just because we have the same birthday as someone, you know, a lot of people like to debunk astrology because of that. Oh, well, we have the same birthday or whatever. You know, like, we can know that we're special while having the same birthdays as people, and it's not taking away from their uniqueness or our own, because there's so many different expressions that are happening. Okay, so once you get into your personal ship, you want to break down your name. So I definitely suggest, you know, the etymology of your name if you don't know what your name means. You know, just break down your name as much as you can. You know, what other words can you make with your name? You know, get a better picture of your name, your first, your middle, and your last. Whatever name that you mostly, you know, use and stuff like that. So I don't have a middle name, so it's just my first and my last name. I do the etymology for both. Okay. After you do your name, you want to do the numerology of your name. So yes, even names, there are numbers attached to names. So you want to do the numerology for your name, and then you want to do the numerology for your birthday. For your birthday, I would suggest doing month, day, and your year instead of just doing the month and the day. But it depends on you, I would say. I mean, it really depends on what you feel comfortable with. Okay? It's all about how can you break down your starship as much as you can so you can, you know, fix it back up. After the numerology of your name and your birthday, you want to look at your astrology, of course. So for this astrology part, I 100% recommend Vedic astrology. I think that is the most accurate for this particular type of study. So I definitely suggest looking at your Vedic chart, like 1,000%. Okay. After you've compiled this list of numbers and words and symbols and all of these things, you want to look at it objectively. You want to look at your starship pieces objectively. And again, turn it back to nature. So for example, if your life path number, which the life path number is is your birthday numerology, that's what it is. If your life path number is 8, for example, what is represented as 8 in nature? Well, octopuses are represented by 8. So I have a friend, her life path number is 8, and we were looking up so much information about octopuses, and it was just so beautiful just to see it like that, to see us as a part of nature, because nowadays we're kind of in this in-between state of feeling like we're not a part of nature, but like we are. And I think it's so important to know your starship so that you understand, or that we understand, our place in the circle of life, and not to look at it like, oh, somebody else's starship is better. Like, no, it's to look at our starship with value, and that it was very purposeful, the day and the name, and to look at things as purposeful. Another thing too, if you want to look at mythology correspondence as well. So for example, if you're a life path 1, right, that's more associated with being a leader. So if you know any particular mythology, legends, or you can archetypes that is also, if you want to correspond it with that too. But I think the whole purpose of this, the reason why I received it again, is because it has to do with nature. Okay. Another thing I was thinking about was the day you were born. Well, not the day, sorry. The time you were born, if you want to break down that. I haven't done that myself, but that's some more things that came to me later. If that's something that you're interested in, is the time you were born, where you were born, the etymology of where you were born, the etymology of the hospital, break down the address of the hospital. There's a lot of things. You can go really deep. Like I said, it has to deal with things that you have no control over. Okay, so keep that in mind when you do this. So I hope that I explained this to a degree where those who are listening can understand, and you can take this information, if you wish, and break down your own starship. Like I said, if you have any questions, or you just want to talk about this in the comments, just write a comment. And I hope to come back soon with a moon persona chart video. I'm really excited about this moon persona chart video, because I've broken it down to the point of I don't know, it's just crazy. And I have a lot of changes going on in my own life right now, a lot of transition. Actually, my next video will probably be about death, if I'm going to be completely honest. It's going to be about death and transitions, because I feel like talking about death and transitions and then going into the moon persona chart video would be best, because there's a correlation. But YouTubers were like, the next video is gonna be about, and then so anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. We just we're still in Taurus season, but there's a Mercury retrograde in Gemini, and we're about to enter Gemini season. So We're about to enter this air. It's very air season. Definitely suggest talking to yourself. Gemini season is perfect for talking to yourself. So thank you guys for watching, and have a beautiful rest of your day, night, evening, whenever you are watching. Bye.